Have you ever wondered what the most terrifying sound in the world is? It isn't a scream, nor is it the rolling thunder or footsteps stalking you in the dead of night. The most terrifying sound, in reality, is silence. A silence so absolute, so dense, that it presses against your eardrums as you lie inside a wooden box, buried 2 meters beneath the cold, unyielding earth. Close your eyes for a moment, just for a second. Imagine waking up in pitch-black darkness, not a single photon of light, the smell of damp, moldy soil invading your nostrils. You try to sit up, but your forehead strikes a hard wooden plank. You reach to your left. You touch wood. To your right, wood again. You scream, but your voice is instantly swallowed by the heavy soil above. The air is running out. Every breath becomes a labor, your lungs burning as if on fire. That is the moment the monster awakens. It has no claws, no physical form, yet it can strangle your heart with a single thought. Welcome to Scarechology, where we don't just tell ghost stories. We peel back the deepest, darkest layers of the human mind. Today, we step into the territory of one of the most primal and devastating fears in human history: claustrophobia, the fear of confined spaces. To understand this monster, we cannot simply view it as a disease or a psychological syndrome listed in dry medical textbooks. We must view it as an ancient curse, hardwired into our genetic code since the dawn of time. The word claustrophobia comes from Latin, combining claustrum, meaning a closed place or cage, and phobos, the Greek god of fear. But in reality, modern psychologists draw a very fine, fragile line between claustrophobia, the fear of small spaces, and its more malicious twin, cleithrophobia, the fear of being trapped. If claustrophobia makes you sweat when stepping into an elevator because the space feels too small, cleithrophobia is the sheer terror that grips you when that elevator door suddenly jams and you realize there is no way out. It is the difference between disliking a cage and realizing the cage is shrinking to crush you. For those suffering from this syndrome, the world is not a vast open sky, but a labyrinth of boxes waiting to snap shut. And human history, tragically, is a treasure trove filled with such boxes. True stories far more terrifying than any horror movie you have ever seen. Let me take you back in time, to late 19th century France, to the ancient and romantic city of Poitiers. There, at number 21 Rue de la Visitation, lived a noble family of the highest standing, the Monnier. Madame Louise Monnier was a respected widow, famous for her charitable works and exemplary moral lifestyle. Her son, Marcel, was a talented lawyer. But few knew that behind the heavy oak doors of that mansion, a horrifying secret was rotting away, both literally and metaphorically. The story begins when the family's beautiful daughter, Blanche Monnier, suddenly vanished in 1876. The time. Blanche was 25 years old, radiant as a velvet rose, the desire of countless young men. Rumors swirled that she had run away with a lover, or had met with an accident, or was perhaps kidnapped. Louise and Marcel played their parts perfectly. They wept, they grieved, and then gradually returned to normal life, leaving the name Blanche Monnier to fade into oblivion as if she had never existed. Time passed cruelly. 10 years, 15 years, then 20 years. The people of Poitiers forgot the beautiful young lady. But justice, sometimes arriving late, came in the form of an anonymous letter. On May 23, 1901, the Attorney General of Paris received an unsigned letter with chilling content. Monsieur Attorney General, I have the honor to inform you of an exceptionally serious occurrence. I speak of a spinster who is locked up in Madame Monnier's house, half-starved and living on a putrid litter for the past 25 years. In a word, in her own filth. The local police were initially skeptical. The Monnier family's reputation was too great. How could such a heinous crime occur in the heart of high society? But when they raided the mansion at number 21, searched room by room, and stopped before a padlocked door in the attic, the true horror began. Upon breaking the lock, a stench so foul, so concentrated, rushed out that even the most seasoned officers were forced to recoil and vomit. The room was pitch black. The windows had been boarded up and covered with heavy curtains for a quarter of a century. When the weak light of oil lamps pierced the gloom, they saw something moving on a rotted straw mattress. It was not an animal. It was Blanche Monnier. By this time, the woman once known as the Flower of Poitiers weighed only 25 kilograms, 55 lobillets. She lay naked on a stratum of oyster shells, crusts of bread, trash, and her own excrement that had accumulated for 25 years. Her long hair was matted, covering her skeletal body like a dark blanket. Rats scurried into the corners as the light hit them, and bugs crawled everywhere on the mattress. 25 years. Imagine it. 25 years without seeing the sun, without a single spoken word, imprisoned within 4 narrow, suffocating walls, breathing air polluted by her own decay. Blanche had survived, or rather existed, in a living hell created by her own mother, simply because she forbade Blanche from loving a poor lawyer. The most haunting aspect was not just the mother's cruelty, but the state of Blanche's mind in that confined space. Doctors later noted that she had nearly lost the ability to speak. She was terrified of sunlight, and her mind had shattered into 1,000 pieces. She had retreated into a world of madness to escape the painful reality. That narrow space did not just imprison her body, it twisted and crushed her soul, turning a human being into a creature that knew only fear. The story of Blanche Monnier is the most brutal testament to the devastating power of confinement on the human psyche. But why does our brain react so violently to narrow spaces? Why is it that simply stepping into a crowded elevator or sliding into an MRI machine makes many feel their heart race and their breath catch as if they are dying? From the perspective of neuroscience, it all stems from a small, almond-shaped structure deep within the temporal lobe, the amygdala. This is the processing center for human fear, the siren installed by nature to protect us from predators. In those with claustrophobia, the amygdala is hypersensitive. But the more interesting explanation lies in the concept of peripersonal space. Scientists have discovered that our brains constantly map out an invisible buffer zone around our bodies to locate and protect us. In a normal person, this buffer extends about an arm's length. But for those afraid of tight spaces, research shows that this buffer zone is wider and distorted. When a wall or a low ceiling invades this forbidden zone, their brain does not recognize it as an inanimate object. It processes that information exactly as if they were facing a tiger lunging at them. The sympathetic nervous system triggers immediately. Adrenaline pumps into the blood, heart rate spikes, breathing becomes rapid to prepare for the fight-or-flight response. But ironically, in a closed space, you cannot fight the wall, and you have nowhere to run. That massive surge of energy is not released. It turns back to attack your own body, creating a panic attack, a sensation of the chest being crushed, the throat being strangled, as if the oxygen in the room has been sucked out, even though the air is plentiful. It is a deadly trick of the brain, a hallucination that makes the victim believe they are suffocating. The torture of narrow spaces does not stop at locked rooms like Blanche Monnier's. Sometimes nature creates traps far more sophisticated and terrifying, places where hope is extinguished millimeter by millimeter. We cannot fail to mention the tragedy of John Edward Jones at Nutty Putty Cave in Utah, USA, in 2009. This is a modern story, but the horror it evokes is profoundly primal. John, a 26-year-old medical student, became stuck in a narrow fissure of the cave while trying to explore an unmarked passage. Picture his position. Upside down, head pointing toward the center of the earth, arms pinned tightly to his sides, in a rock crevice only 18 inches wide and 10 inches high, the size of a washing machine door. He could not move, could not turn his head. Even taking a deep breath became impossible because his chest was compressed by rock every time it expanded. For 28 hours, John hung upside down in the darkness, blood pooling in his brain and lungs, while rescue teams stood helpless despite being able to touch his feet. The tightness here was no longer a psychological sensation. It was physical. Tons of rock hugging him like an armor of death. John Edward Jones's death did not come from monsters or ghosts, but from immobility, from the absolute restriction of space. Nutty Putty Cave was subsequently sealed forever, becoming the concrete tomb of the young man, a cold reminder from Mother Nature of human fragility before the depths of the earth. This story activates a fear even deeper than simple claustrophobia, the fear of being buried alive, taphophobia. In the 18th and 19th centuries, this fear was so pervasive that people invented safety coffins with bells connected to the surface, so that if someone were buried by mistake while in a coma, they could ring the bell for help. Imagine the sound of a bell tinkling in a desolate graveyard amidst the howling wind. Is that the sound of life screaming from the realm of the dead, or the echo of an eternal obsession? Looking back at stories from Blanche Monnier to John Edward Jones, from safety coffins to panic attacks in modern elevators, we realize one thing. Claustrophobia is not simply a fear of being cramped. It is the fear of losing control, the fear of being stripped of the most basic freedom, the right to move and to breathe. It is a reflection of the fear of death, where we are buried into nothingness, alone and powerless. Humans, creatures who always yearn to conquer the sky and the sea, become weakest when limited by four walls. But perhaps, in that ultimate fear, we learn to cherish every breath of freedom we have. Every time you step out of a small room, every time you see the vast blue sky overhead, give a silent thanks that you are still free, still connected to the wide world out there. Life itself can sometimes feel like a narrow space, with the pressures of livelihood and social prejudices surrounding us like invisible walls. There will be times when you feel suffocated, wanting to scream, wanting to break everything to escape. In those moments, remember that fear is just a reaction of the brain, and the true narrow space often lies within our thoughts. Do not let your mind become a locked room like Blanche Monnier's. Throw open the windows of your soul, even just a crack, so that light and hope can seep in. Because darkness, no matter how thick, will always vanish before the dawn. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey to explore this haunting corner of psychology. If you felt today's story touch a nerve, or simply want to hear more deep analyses of human mysteries, leave your thoughts in the comments. Your connection is the only escape that keeps us from being isolated in this vast world filled with invisible boxes. Don't forget to subscribe to Scarechology so we can meet again on the sleepless nights to come. I wish you a peaceful night, and remember, check your locks before you sleep, but never lock your mind.